Hi, I'm Josh Lambert, Group Product Manager for Enablement, and I'd like to talk about what we're planning to achieve in the 13.5 release of GitLab that will be available in October 22nd. We have a couple of main items here that we're focusing on the team. The first one is that we are continuing to work on support for dynamic imagery sizing in the product. This is one of the areas that can have the most impact on improving the overall user experience of GitLab, whether it's self-managed of GitLab.com. And this is because today we serve relatively large assets for potentially small amounts of portions of the screen. So for example, avatars can be up to 200K in size, even though we typically show them at an under 40 pixel by 40 pixel height and width. This means that we send a potentially 100K avatar when really the avatar should be only about a couple K, if that. Net on pages that have a lot of avatars, which are a lot of the pages in GitLab, we could save over 2.7 seconds of overall loading time on the system. That's significant. We have been making progress so far. We've been running some experiments on GitLab.com with a small subset of avatars. And you can see here, it's going pretty well. Overall, 96% reduction in image file size, no errors, and pretty fast resizing duration for most of our operations. You can see here, for example, on average, the 99th percentile was 120K original file size, and that's now 4K going down to the end user. Again, this makes a big difference in the front end by reducing the amount of time it takes downloading, but also the amount of time it takes to resize on the client side and then do all of the layouting work as the image changes and gets loaded in. So that's a big improvement. And the two areas that we're working on here is number one, we're working to minimize the security impact of the resizing process. We've been working on using graphics magic. We're not totally tied to that. We might still change it out. But overall, of course, libraries like graphics magic have had security challenges in the past, although they are well maintained. And so we're just trying to do our best on using something like setcomp and something like that to limit its privileges as much as we possibly can. We are also working to investigate more of the caching options. As we are making good progress on dynamic resizing, we of course don't want to resize every single image every single time it's requested. And so we want to be able to cache these resized assets to not have to re-pull it to the GitLab servers, increasing the cost of bandwidth, but also paying the compute cost of resizing every single time. And of course, also the latency involved as well in the pull and resizing. So for a lot of reasons, caching is important, and it is the next major step towards delivering this to broader customers. From there, we're also looking to shift on to a little more forward-looking items and a little smaller impact ones. We made some improvements to a couple endpoints that had a lot of cache SQL calls. These impact performance, but they also consume a lot of memory. And so we've improved a couple of them, for example, on the notes controller. We're also going to take a look here at the merger controller if that is not getting in 13.4. But the overall goal here for the cache SQL calls in this release is to resolve one or two more. They're relatively quick, but to document what we did to establish the best practice. And that way we can enable the rest of GitLab's development teams to do this work themselves. Because this has been an ongoing challenge and there's a lot more endpoints they have to solve. And so we can't solve this all ourselves in the memory team. So that is what we'll be doing in this release for the cache SQL calls. Moving on down to the next item here, which is real user metrics on GitLab.com. This is a feature of Snowplow. It's also a feature of many other types of front-end and overall performance suites, like, for example, Datadog and New Relic, but they can provide just page load timing back to the server. And so we want to take advantage of this on GitLab to be able to understand how the broader community of users actually experiences GitLab. We do some performance testing from a GCP instance in Ohio to GitLab.com, also on GCP. That's a very controlled, but how do people in Europe, how do people in Asia, what is their experience like? What's the experience like on a cellular connection with some, kind of rough or not great connection strength? So these things we'll get from RUM, and we'll have a better idea of the overall performance of GitLab that these users actually perceive. And so this is important for us. We want to try and start to track this. And it will also give us information on, for example, how much impact something like geo replicated instances in different regions would have to improve performance. So this should be a pretty lightweight change. Again, Snowplow has support for this. It might just be enabling a quick flag. And that will also send the page load timings along with the other information we get from Snowplow back up into GitLab. Finally here, the last item, we want to start getting underway. Had the memory team work more on the Ruby 2.7 stuff. Ruby 2.7 has memory improvements and also performance improvements. And so we want to go ahead and start to be able to leverage the benefits of 2.7 and also work to stay up to date on 2.8 and as we approach to 3.0 next year, because again, there'll just be continuing memory and performance benefits in each of these releases, and we'd love to take advantage of them. In particular, on 2.7, there is the garbage collection changes, which should really allow us to reduce our memory consumption by forking, by loading our resources before forking and getting a lot more use out of that and memory reduction out of that than we have in the past because of how Ruby does GC. So exciting changes here. Some really large impact, really large high impact items with dynamic emphasizing and also the Ruby 2.7 upgrade. So super excited. And if you have any thoughts or feedback, please leave comments on these issues. Otherwise, we will see you next month for the next kickoff. Thank you so much.